Good evening and welcome to Surprise, Arizona. Tonight we're coming to you live from the campus of Ottawa University of Surprise. We are so pleased to be here this evening. This is a very important moment for all of us to be working on our future and working on our future vision together as a community. And so we're very, very pleased to be having a joint commission meeting with our Planning Commission and Council this evening. We've also invited members of the public to be here with us this evening. And also you can participate and watch the meeting on Facebook Live this evening. So on Facebook you need to search or go to Surprise City Gov and simply use the comment area on the feed to ask your question or share an idea or make a suggestion. And as time permits, we will do our best to respond during the meeting. If we don't get to your comment, all submissions will be part of our public record and summarized and reviewed and responded to as soon as possible. Our city offices will be closed tomorrow in honor of Veterans Day. But at this time, I would like to call this meeting to order, and the clerk will take the roll.
Mayor Wolcott?
Here.
Vice Mayor Tandy?
Here.
Councilmember Duffy?
Here.
Councilmember Remley?
Here.
Councilmember Hall?
Here.
Councilmember Winters?
Here.
Councilmember Hayden?
Is excused.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning Chair Chapman?
Here.
Vice Chair Rosenbaum? Commissioner Keating?
Here.
Commissioner Bash?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Norberg?
Here.
Commissioner Colton?
Here.
Thank you very much.
And if you'll all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tonight's agenda comes in two parts, and the first part is very important because, of course, we are here at Ottawa University. And we are hoping to hear more from Ottawa University about what their future needs are and discuss those needs pertaining to our strategic plans for this city center and for the campus and how the two work collaboratively together and how much the Ottawa University campus can be an activator for this very important signature city center. So I'm going to begin by asking Mr. Dennis Tyner to come forward and give us an update on what he sees for the future of Ottawa here in the City of Surprise. Welcome, Dennis.
You expect that from now on, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you for inviting me to our building here.
Thank you for sharing.
The last time I was with this group here, or half of the group in front of me, I gave an update on where we were at, but half of the group was not here. Thank you. I didn't realize I had to turn on microphones also. So for the sake of those people who weren't here the last time, I'm just going to go through sort of where we're at, where we started, up to where we're at, and looking forward, if that's okay.
Thank you.
So that should take us about an hour and a half, and then the remainder of the meeting you can do whatever you'd like.
Right.
So Ottawa University made a decision to come to Surprise, Arizona and start its residential campus in October of 2016. So just about a year ago, we made that decision. We scurried and put together our leadership team. We came out here. We hit the ground running pretty quickly. The idea behind us starting mid-year for an institution of higher education, it was mid-year. The idea behind starting mid-year had some concerns to all of us, and we knew that it would be a difficult year in recruiting students. So we adopted an athletic model to start our programs here. And when I say that, what I'm implying is that our plan was to start varsity athletics. We started 21 varsity athletic sports and recruit heavily for student athletes because we believed that that was a deficiency in particular in this state. And we were very, very successful doing that. When we decided to come out, our goal was to enroll 250 students in our first year, having a half a year to recruit. And we are just delighted to tell you that we enrolled 434 students at the beginning of our fall semester. So we exceeded our numbers significantly. Bringing those students on campus was no easy task. As many of our coaches would tell you, we were selling dirt and air and a singular building that we were sitting in here, and a vision for what the future would be. And the beauty was that many people who came here and visited the campus had an opportunity to interface with us and with members of the City of Surprise, who were so helpful in our recruiting process, saw that same vision that we saw, and many of them signed on the dotted line and came to our school. The challenge is for us to finish on that promise, of course, that we laid out for those students and fulfill their dream and our dream as well. So in that enrolling class, you may be interested in knowing that 55% of those students came from the state of Arizona. About 35% came from California. I believe there were 38 students who came from the City of Surprise. So we hit the ground running pretty hard, and we hit the ground running looking to recruit, in particular, locally first, and then in the markets that were pretty well understood and pretty well known by our coaching staffs. So they reached out to the places that they had good connections. As we move forward this year, we need to prove to ourselves and to the City of Surprise that what we can do is we can also recruit non-athletes. So that would be a significant challenge for us. We've built up our staff in our admissions department. In fact, we just hired last week on Friday, we hired 3 new enrollment advisors. We started them Monday this week, and we had a 4-day training session that just ended literally an hour ago. So we've been training them on our processes. We've been training them on understanding our institution and what it is that we stand for, what our mission is, and what our differentiators are. And those students, those members of our enrollment staff will be largely responsible for recruiting non-athletic students. Our goal in this coming year, that is a combined spring and fall enrollment, is to enroll 375 total students, new students to the institution. We know that we'll have some losses, as all institutions do, based on retention challenges. But overall, several of those 375, approximately 150 of them, we expect will be athletes, replacing athletes who leave. And then an additional roughly 220 students will be non-athletic students. To assist in that recruiting process, we have built an affinity program, much like what we have on our Ottawa, Kansas campus, in which we try to attract students who are participants. That's who we are as an institution. We're a participation institution. And we know very well that students who participate in something when they go to college are more likely to be retained at the school. And so this year we've put different incentives, scholarship incentives out for different areas aside from athletics. For example, and I don't want to bore you all night with examples, but for example, we're going to scholarship students who want to participate in club bowling. We believe there's a beautiful bowling alley down the road. It suits us really well, and we know that there are a number of students who would want to participate in that. And so we looked around at the Valley, we looked around at Arizona, we looked at neighboring schools who are close to us and what sorts of things they offer and where our students probably could compete in non-athletic sports. And so those are where our ideas came from. I would tell you that members of the city staff actually served on our committee when we sat down to decide which areas we were going to recruit for. So this has been a true partnership for us with the city. It's critically important that, that we work together with them and that we're looking out for the best interest of both organizations. I haven't been at any institution where I've actually watched that happen. So this is a unique organization that we're working with here that has that opportunity to do that with a true relationship with the city, where we're not fighting against each other, rather we're working together for the best interest of both organizations. That just gives me great pleasure to come in on a daily basis and do my job. If I could, I'd love to lift up the Economic Development Department because we work most closely with them. And I would just tell you that without them, we would have been lost when we came out here. I just cannot say enough good things about Mike Hoover and Kendra Pettis in particular. I'm talking about the entire department, but in particular those two people who meet with us on a regular basis. 2 times a week, they meet with us to go over what our needs are, what we need to do, what they can do to help us, and what we can do to assist them. So it's a great partnership. In fact, within our enrollment area, they helped us to establish a program which will allow us to bring students from high schools, probably mostly local high schools, to competitive competition here on our campus and on the city grounds, in which they will They will be awarded with scholarships at the end, and they'll have an opportunity to see what the city's like and have an opportunity to interface with the city, and we believe there will be city personnel who will actually serve as judges for that competition. So this is, I cannot emphasize enough the relationship and the partnership, which is critically important to us. So as we look to move forward, all of our conversations always involve the city. We want to ensure that we're not just looking out for what it is that we want to do, but we're looking out for what the city is trying to do at the same time and find that common ground. So as we move forward, what sorts of things are we trying to do? Well, many of you know already we finished our competition field. We did not finish the competition complex. We finished the field. And we have played 3 games on that field already, and our season is now over. And now that field sits idly by for other people to come utilize and for our teams to continue practicing on. So that was a great first step for us. We've been utilizing CCV, we've been utilizing the high schools, we've been utilizing city facilities. Everything we've been doing has been with the help of many other organizations around us. And we just, quite frankly, could not have done it otherwise. We would have failed immediately. So you can imagine what it's like when I tell my colleagues that we started a university, a new residential campus with no athletic facilities, with no cafeteria, with no place to cook food, with no dormitories, no residence halls, and yet we have residential students who eat on our campus and who play varsity sports. It's just an amazing story. It's amazing. It's amazing. What we are feeling as we reach out to the community and as we visit schools is we are feeling a definite demand and a desire for an institution like ours in this particular area. As many of you know, the West Valley has been underserved by higher education institutions, and we have been welcomed with open arms. So when we say that our goal, even though it's really not a goal, it's an expectation. Our expectation is within 10 years, we can easily have 3,000 students on this campus. Not the campus that you're looking at right now, the campus that will grow with new buildings and new facilities. We're not joking when we say that. There's a real demand and a real need. And that's what we're watching that happen firsthand. So this year is a crucial year for us in the recruiting process, for us to be able to show that we can indeed recruit more than just student athletes. And so we'll watch at the end of this year, and I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to report back to you on how the recruiting went for this year. The short-term goal for us is to build out 3 additional buildings within the next year to a year and a half. And those buildings are an athletic facility, which we originally were calling 2 buildings, an indoor and outdoor athletic facility. That would be to the western side of this campus, which would butt up against Dreamcatcher Park. And that facility, we call it an indoor and an outdoor. The indoor has a gymnasium, or 3 gymnasiums, that would house basketball courts and volleyball courts, as well as some additional facilities on the inside. And the outdoor really doesn't just service the outdoor athletic teams. However, it overlooks our football field, and therefore the press box would be tied into that building, would be a component of that building. But in addition to that, we would have all our athletic offices, so our coaching staff would be housed in that location. We would have our locker rooms there, our training room, and our weight rooms would all be in that facility. The second facility is for us to build a KDR. That's what we're calling it, the KDR, kitchen, dining, and recreation area. So it would be large enough to serve as recreation space, which might be similar to conferencing space. This is the way you should think of it. And that would be closer to this building, more on the eastern side of this campus, and just to the south of this building. And that would have enough space to seat over 1,000 people. And then finally, the third building would be our first residential hall. And we've been looking at this plan for quite some time. I think we've sort of locked onto this and have been there now probably for about 3 months. But I will tell you, it's a plan that evolves. And it evolves based on who wants to finance and invest with us and what it is that they want us to do. And I am pleased to tell you that today I got a phone call from our president with regard to a gift from one of our wonderful alums who has served on our Board of Trustees for many years. That is going to make our very short-term building almost a reality. So a few more things have to happen, but we are delighted to tell you this because we've been working on our investing on this project for quite some time. So within the next, I would say, I should probably say year to 2 years, because I know now after building an athletic field, all of the snags that we'll run into and all of the delays that may happen. But within the short term, that's what we expect to have happen. Beyond that, we'll need to build out onto our southern portion of the campus. We anticipate there will be additional practice fields and additional space for academics. At the same time, we found that in enrolling 434 students, we sort of met the capacity of this building in terms of classroom space. And right now we are looking at Stadium Village and renting, leasing additional space there to build some laboratories and some classroom space within the next half a year. In fact, we're leasing space right now and renovating it for our athletic coaches to be in prior to the building of our athletic facility. So as we look forward, we're looking forward to the build out of this campus. We're looking forward to continued growth in the student population. We're looking for students who are participatory students. And at the same time, we're looking to see what we as an institution can do with all of the constituents of our institution, whether they be academic, athletic, or whatever, and how they can interface with our community. In particular, we're very interested in the school system, interfacing with the school system, and how we can form relationships with them. And interestingly enough, we're very, very interested in what our faculty can do as consultants with organizations who might be looking to come here to Surprise and how they could serve those organizations. I think this is just a win-win opportunity for the City of Surprise and the building of the City of Surprise and Ottawa University at the same time.
Wonderful. Thank you. And first of all, I want to say congratulations. That's a wonderful piece of news that you brought to us this evening about the gift. And I know we've all been looking forward to that next step and making certain that that you were able to live that dream and build those residential facilities and all the other facilities that you mentioned. And I know this, while yes, there are snags, there are always snags in building anything as magnificent as a dream like this. You are right, we are blessed to have the most incredibly talented staff who will be working side by side from now into the end of time to make certain that this is a joint partnership that never fails. So I really appreciate your compliments to our staff because, quite frankly, we know we have the best, and we know that's why you chose us to be your partner here in the City of Surprise. Council and Commission, do you have any questions for Dennis that you'd like to explore? Anyone? Planning Commission, this is, okay, Mr. Colton?
Well, thanks so much for your presentation. Really appreciate it. Just a couple of questions. With the challenges and the snags that you've encountered, there's always good stories mixed within the snags. So I want to ask for a good solution from a snag. Tell me a little bit about, given the housing challenge, where the 434 student athletes are and how they currently reside.
So all of our students are not residential students. When we define residential students, we imply that they are living in university-sponsored housing, and not all of our students are living in university-sponsored housing. Approximately 200 are living in university-sponsored housing. We have established a relationship with the Windmill Inn and Suites. We ran into a snag with that, but then that worked out in the long term. So while we ran into that snag, we searched for additional housing opportunities, and the Harmony Apartments came to light for us. So we are currently renting 16 apartments over at Harmony, so we have students who are living there. And then the next space that we're looking at is a space next door to the Harmony Apartments where there are some new cottages that are being built, and we have in our hands right now a contract that we are reviewing for housing space locations for our students there as well. So it's sort of like a lower, middle, and upper tier of housing for our students.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Questions? Mr. Chair, anyone? Well, thank you. Again, we just so enjoy having you here and partnering with you. It's changed the face of City Hall. It's changed the way we matriculate around our city campus here. And it's just such a pleasure to see young energy across all of our courtyards and just engaging with one another. So it's really been a pleasure working with you, and we will continue to be here. So I hope you'll stick around and let us continue to use your room in the future. But this evening, we really wanted to move forward with kind of a long-term discussion and start that engaged process with our residents. So again, I want to thank you for being here, and thank you for letting us use your facility tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I will take you up on your invite to stick around this evening.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis.
Great job.
Thank you. So at this time, just a couple of things. The table in front of you is a place where you can come forward and give us your thoughts, your ideas, your concerns, whatever. This is truly an open dialogue. This is not a place for us to sit here and pontificate, but quite frankly, we haven't had a discussion as a council and a planning commission, and so we really want to kind of open it up to you and to us, and to make it sort of a free-flowing conversation. So just to kind of get the ball rolling, I want to point you to the maps on either side of the room. And what you see here is kind of a visual history of the growth in the city of Surprise. These maps represent what Surprise looked like in 1997, which of course is 20 years ago. 20 years ago, approximately 20 years ago, when we entered into an arrangement with our partners on our downtown, this is what that city center looked like. And you'll note right in the middle of the screen, you'll note sort of a triangular parcel of property that is actually the auxiliary field for Luke Air Force Base. Now, today, our City Hall is located right square in, I think, at the apex of the east side of the auxiliary field triangle. And of course, Ottawa University is just to the south of our City Hall. And that square mile around it is essentially our city center, which we have been reserving for a city center for so many years, and was envisioned by the visionaries that sat on our city council some 20 years ago. Now I'd like to move forward 10 years to the year 2007, and you can see what a difference 10 years makes. So bear with us as we get the technology moving here. So you can clearly see what a difference 10 years makes in a hyper-growth era of a place like Arizona in general, but certainly the West Valley and the city of Surprise enjoyed an incredible amount of growth, largely residential growth, because the city of Surprise was modeled to be largely a residential bedroom community. And so while there are many, many beautiful bedroom community facilities around our city and beautiful neighborhoods, what seems to have been lacking all along is kind of that critical mass of business activity that helps us bring in revenues to help support services for our city and services to you, and also to provide the level of business activity that our residents have been saying time and again they want. They want a place to not just sleep, they want a place to shop, they want a place to be entertained, and we've made a lot of progress over the next 10 years from 2007 to now today. What we see on the ground today is even more substantially changed and filled in. So you can clearly see the rapid fill-in over 10 years, of only 10 years from between 2007 and 2017. That's a pretty amazing development in just 10 years. So, and you can clearly see that there we are in the center with the city center, the city hall, the baseball facilities to the west, and our shopping center to the east, and Grand Avenue, and the original town site, the original square mile. So this essentially is the core of our community. And so my dad once said, measure twice, cut once. Don't make a big mistake. And so thankfully, we have not made any legacy mistakes on this beautiful piece of property. And I, for one, believe that Ottawa University is really a crown jewel that's going to activate the city center. And that's why I think it's time for us now, all of us, to know and weigh in. How does this city center look to you, and what do you want to see here in city center? It's very, very important to know what end users want to have in their city center. We here up on this panel, the council and the planning commission, we work for you. And so we're here to try to make your dream come true. And that's why it's so important for us to engage you publicly so that we know what you're interested in. A couple of weeks ago, I started inviting people to just send in some comments, and I have many of them which I can read as we move along, but I'm just going to start with just one of the top ones from one resident who wrote me a letter, and she said, thanks for allowing us to send email comments. I have a few comments that I'd like to share. I'd like you to consider a performing arts center, such as those in Mesa or Scottsdale, or even a small center like the one in Peoria. Those that seem most successful from what I've experienced appear to be the types that encompass both art and performance. Also consider an upscale type of shopping area with live-work accommodations, such as what is experienced at Kierland Commons or Scottsdale Quarter, just to name a few. And lastly, consider that Surprise desperately needs some upscale restaurants and an enclosed mall for shopping, perhaps not in the Old Town concept area, but somewhere within the city limits. I believe this is essential if you really want to grow the city. So that is kind of the general tone of many of the comments that we had, and we'll start inserting them through the process. But I'd like to first start by asking the Planning Commission and the Council some comments that you may have received from the residents that you represent, if you've heard some comments on things that you'd like to hear. Councilmember Winters, if you'd like to go first.
Thank you, Mayor. And welcome to all the citizens that are here tonight. The comments that I receive from a lot of times from my constituents is, when are you going to do something with that desert property around City Hall? And it's asked many, many times. And of course, they're curious what we're going to put there, when we're going to start. And it's been unfortunately a long, long process. But this council really wants something built around our City Hall, and we want a mixed-use place where people can walk and go to their little stores and go have some nice restaurants. And it's just going to take a lot of planning, and tonight's a good start. Although we've tried to start a couple of times, just seems to be stalling out. But that's most of the questions that I receive from my constituents, is when we're going to build up the property around City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Did I see a hand over here that would like to start? Anyone else? Councilmember Ramley, I see you moving towards the mic.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, just as Ottawa University is a catalyst that I think is going to bring a lot of development to our community, we've already done a couple of things that are really a catalyst to additional construction. One of those is we have a regional courthouse located right outside this building that is the courthouse of choice for the entire region. But we don't have in this town a decent professional building. And I think if we had a professional building located someplace in fairly close proximity to where we sit right now, that would be something that would draw professionals. Attorneys are kind of lazy. They like to get to the courthouse real quick, you know, and take papers over. Oh, I see a couple of attorneys back there laughing, but that's true. Anyway, I think if we had such a professional building, I was at Goodyear yesterday, and I couldn't help but notice that right outside their City Hall, there's professional buildings where there's attorneys and accountants and some brokerage firms and such institutions. And maybe that would be something that we would want to be considering.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anyone else?
Here.
Yes.
What I'm hearing is if we're not a bedroom community, what does the city of Surprise really want to be when it grows up? And to me, that seems to be kind of the basic question that really needs to be answered. You know, do we see ourselves as being heavy industry, medium industry, a lot of light industry? Do we see ourselves as being more professional buildings and attracting professional headquarters? Amazon is out there right now looking at Arizona. So I think the basic question is, what does Surprise want to be in its future? And I think if we decide that question, then a lot of the things like a performing arts center, because if we decide that we're attracting professional businesses, we need to have good schools, churches, and a lot of amenities as far as restaurants go and those kinds of things, as well as arts, to attract the professional people. So that's what I'm hearing.
Okay. Commissioner Smith?
What I've heard for many years is, when are we going to finally see something in Versada? And I mean, obviously retail is going through a complete transformation everywhere, and new malls are not being built. And sometime in the future, if we're not going to build a mall in Versada, we need to work with the developer and come up with a plan of how are we going to utilize that land for the city of Surprise. Is it going to be reserved for like commercial office buildings? Is it a hospital? You know, what are we going to do with the land? Are we going to sit and wait till the retail revolution ends and we figure out, are we going to build a mall? Are we going to build a strip center? What are we going to do? And that would satisfy a lot of what we've read. We'd like a place to shop. Well, no one's going to come and build until they know if that's going to be developed. I'm not going to build in another location and then that open and have to relocate. And so I think Versada, after the city center, is probably the second piece that we need to finally decide what we need to do in the city of Surprise to go forward.
Thank you. Anyone over on this side of the table? Vice Mayor?
Sure. I hear a lot through social media, and some of the comments I hear are, let's have some music, dining, entertainment, retail, shopping, a sense of place, some place I can go have fun at. And in order to make that successful, you know, it does need the other components that the commissioner was talking about. So what they're describing here is a mixed use. And I had shared an article about Tempe had recently successfully had a Whole Foods market, and on top of that was high-density housing. And there was a lot of interest by our residents to that article. So that's another option. I also think it's very important to have it walkable. That's what I've heard a lot. You know, let's have a place where we can walk around and enjoy ourselves. But to do all this, in my mind, it takes a lot of planning to do, and a lot of coordination with our development partners and with our community and, you know, any other stakeholders that want to get involved. And I see the best way to doing that is coming up with a master plan that will help us vision that and put it all together, so that when somebody throws something in there and then, you know, the consensus is, well, we really don't like that, you pull it out. But if there's something that's missing and the consensus is, hey, we really need this, great idea. So involved in all that, I also envision employment. So do you want people just to come down there for lunch or just down there for dinner? Or do you want people that are working there can do that by walking out their office? I like the idea of the entertainment, the performing arts and art, culture, things like that. And because this is such a big area and so complex, it really calls for a master plan so that we don't forget anything and so that we don't put something in that really doesn't fit. And I don't think it'll be a static plan. I'd like to see a working plan where we can, hey, a great idea comes up and hey, maybe it's a higher priority than this and maybe something else gets squeezed out. on the plan. And then that's kind of a good roadmap. I think that'll also help the people considering locating here. They all want to know, is their investment going to do well by what's next to them? They know their business really well. They know what kind of businesses locate next to them and helps service them and helps complement them. So again, that's my big thing is I think a master plan is very important. Not by the city council, not by the planning commission, not by just the developers, but this is a public-private partnership. We need the residents and everybody in helping us do that. That's my vision without telling the exact what I want to see in it.
Follow on, Mayor?
Yes.
I think you bring up a very good point, Vice Mayor. I think we've demonstrated that relationship with Ottawa University and that partnership that can be developed, and I think that is exactly what needs to be developed with the developers of the land so that everybody feels comfortable with what we're trying to do. And the city, I think, has demonstrated that through Ottawa University.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Colton?
As one of the younger people in the room, and I don't want to exploit that phrase too much, but as one of the younger people in the room, I'm sure after the meeting I'll get chastised, but that's okay. Part of what I hear throughout all of the districts in our city are a variety of different things. And first, the theme partnerships. I think having Ottawa University host this event, the facility, and being here and hearing from our representative what a great partnership it has started. What I continue to hear all around the community is what other partnerships can we create? What partnerships can we make better? What partnerships can we use with existing partners to better utilize facility use agreements? You hear about, as a former member of the Arts and Culture Commission, advocating for arts, I've heard people say for a long time, I just wish we could have a theater. I wish we could have a nice place to have special events. Well, we currently have 3 relatively very new performing arts centers in our region. And one thing is, I think in our partnership with Dysart Unified School District, we need to utilize and benefit from the use of those facilities so that different artistic events or groups or outside events would want to come here, would want to bring exactly what all of our residents would like. Another is, there's other partnerships that exist in this city, and, what do we do to create the taxes, the business conditions, having ordinances that invite companies and business and vitality to this city. When you look at a map, and thank you so much for just bringing and showing us the historical perspective of the map, but when you start to look at our city and, really with a lot of the new PAD, planned area development that we have coming to our city, space begins to run out. And as space begins to run out, the Amazons will look elsewhere because they need more space. They need more conditions that will be beneficial for them as a corporation. The land starts to run out related to different types of businesses that we might like to have here. So that just kind of would be one of the items that I hear from residents is what are we doing with our existing partnerships? I know the downtown is a partnership currently with Mattamy Homes and Carefree Partners, and how are we going to foster that partnership? Bringing jobs to our region would be a second item that I hear. We have a lot of residents besides our retirees who travel outside this community and travel between 30 and 45 miles one way to go to their jobs each day. So what is it that we can do to advocate and create the conditions where businesses would want to come to us? And then the last two things, or the last one item would be, we've been here since 2009, and of a city that was around 75,000 residents, we're up around 135,000 residents. And with a growing city comes the increased need for high visibility for public safety. And I know when you have a large city with as many square miles that we have, having a police presence that's visible, they're a wonderful police force, but as we have more increased vehicle accidents in this region with more residents, the increased police visibility certainly helps with the perception of a strong public safety. So those are the three things that I've been hearing.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. To your point about, particularly about the arts, I think that's one place where the city has been very successful in developing those partnerships because of the facilities that we do have and that we do share with our school district and the joint use facilities agreements that we have. We've been able to bring forward the Surprise Pops Band, for one thing. They are also our performing arts facilities host the West Valley Symphony. And of course, right outside our own campus, we have the home office of the West Valley Arts Council. So we are already well on our way to having quite an arts presence after some pretty significant losses that we incurred during the economic downturn in our arts community. So, and we have a very, very active arts commission who have done a lot about helping us really make our space an open, welcoming cultural center, and they're well on their way to implementing their plan. And so I think the City of Surprise has a lot to offer in terms of those arts and cultural opportunities, but so much more is desired by the general public because I see it reflected in the comments that keep coming in. As for space, I don't know if Paul, if you could, or someone can help me find a larger map of, if we can kind of pull out to our planning area. I didn't actually warn you about this, but if you could, if you see the City of Surprise as, there you go, the magic of technology. So there's our big map, and you can clearly see that while we have developed about a third of our planning area, we have about 2/3 of it left to go. So we have a long ways to go, but we also have other issues that we have to be focused on. And I think one of the reasons that we are wanting to make certain that our city center is preserved for a certain kind of use and density is because we have so much room for single-family detached housing. Lots and lots of room, 303 square miles total of planning area. So I do want us to get back to trying to focus more on our city center and recognizing that it's part of a greater context, but for certain our city center is what we're here to talk about tonight, and I look forward to jointly hosting future meetings like this to get the bigger picture. So anyone else from this side of the table that wants to weigh in before I ask anybody in the public if you would like to talk about things that you'd like to see in our city center? And please be thinking about comments because we really want to encourage people to step up and play a part in this process. Yeah, Susan, would you like to come forward? Yes. Okay. Okay. Good evening, and if you would just identify yourself for the record, Susan.
My name is Susan DeYoung. I'm the chair of the Surprise Arts and Cultural Advisory Commission. And I've been listening with great interest to what you've been saying. I wanted to just speak for a moment about what I've been hearing. And you're all talking about large theater complexes. And I do want to mention that we do have this master plan underway. It has been underway since last March. It should be finished by the spring. And I think it's important that you all know, and actually most of you do, because we've been presenting it all over to stakeholders, to commissions. We've done hundreds of surveys, and we're finding out what everybody wants to see, what kind of venues. And some of these venues should probably be in a downtown, some of the smaller venues. And we're finding that a lot of people would like smaller venues, smaller music venues, smaller theaters, smaller mixed-use venues, as opposed to the really large ones. Because it's harder to fill a 1,300-seat venue than it is to have something for 500 seats, or a larger place that you can break down into, say, 500 seats, or put a portable wall in and have two 250-seat venues and have some kind of great mixed-use venue. And also these venues in a downtown would be surrounded by restaurants, galleries, other places that are walkable, shops. And that's the kind of thing that I think people would like to see in a downtown area. It would make for a nice cultural area. And that's how I've always imagined downtown Surprise, wherever it happens to be.
Thank you for your input. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Sue.
So I do have a number of people who are now submitting these request forms. And where are they, Sherry? Are they at the back of the room?
Yes, they're on the back table.
On the back table. If you would like to come forward, Jody's can hand out the request forms. If you'd like to come forward, that way we can have a little bit more orderly process, but we would certainly like to hear from you all. So next I'm going to bring up a former council member. Councilmember Leo Mankiewicz, are you here?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Leo Mankiewicz. I live here in Surprise, kind of right across Greenway Road there. It sounds like we have a lot of good input on the type of things that we want to see here. I'd like to provide some input as to what it might look like. And this is important because I would really like to see this as a destination, not just for our West Valley, not just for our county, but a national destination. And we are really in striking distance of doing something like that if we can sort of think outside the box. It would take, as I've heard said, a master plan of some kind. There are companies that do nothing but feasibility studies of areas just like this, where they present all the possibilities, how the stakeholders' needs might be met, how it connects into the surrounding neighborhood. They can map it all out, and I haven't seen that done yet. The square mile is not really that big, so we have to engage some real creative types, and whoever is in charge of putting the spade to the ground, I think they have a chance to be really creative. So let's not just sprawl, start building and sprawling in this, what I consider just a tiny square mile of what is our planning area. Let's maybe welcome some high-rise, walkable, closely built buildings that protect pedestrians from the sun. And there's good ways to use passive solar and directing of air currents through these buildings, so you wouldn't have to have a very energy intensive solution to something like that. Let's look at some desert appropriate architecture. There's civilizations on this planet that have lived in deserts for decades and centuries, let alone we've just been here for maybe 100 years in this valley. So this is a small patch of land, really. I mean, some techie just bought some huge piece of Tonopah, and so there is national and international interest in our little valley. High-rise buildings will also give you a bonus because anybody in those buildings is going to have a view of those fabulous White Tank Mountains. But it's got to be done right. It's got to look appropriate. It's got to blend, but it should be something unique. We have a chance to do something really unique here. I'm driving by the little retail center at Statler and Litchfield. What did I see? Lo and behold, kinetic sculptures. outside the building. What a marvelous thing. I remember when we were talking about a sign for the Moon Valley Nursery, and I tried to explain, why don't you put a kinetic, stainless steel moon on top of that thing, and people will see it from miles around, and the poor owner of the facility just looked at me and said, oh my God. But, it's possible, and it can happen. We can make an allowance for some kind of transportation circulation system that is particular to this area, but spreads out enough to pick up people from surrounding areas. A little regional bus or jitney or something that will bring people in here so that we don't have to use up a lot of land resources for parking. Because there can be a lot of stuff here and a lot of people coming in, and people are going to want to live here. I can tell you right now, that's what I've heard from people. They would love to live in a mixed-use environment here. So that's essentially my pitch. Let's do something really, really creative here while we have the chance.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Leo. All right, next we have another former council member, Mike Woodard. Are you still here, Mike? I saw you. There you are. Thank you. Come in. That's great. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. And it's been a while since I've been on this side of the microphone, but one of the things that concerns me when we're talking about city center, if you look at the city of Surprise, we're huge. And where we are right now is down in one little corner of the city. If you go out in the desert, it goes forever, it seems like. But when I moved here in 1997, I've been 20 years, the city hall was just right down the street. And it was fine, it was great. But we had 10,000 people. Now we have 100 and, I heard the number earlier.
36.
A whole bunch anyway. And we've still got the city hall in the same little location, basically, down in this little corner. I think if your long-range planning is move out, get into this. If you want to be the center, your city center, then be there. Phoenix has a fantastic plan, I think. Their downtown is in the center of the city pretty much. We have the suburbs, such as Glendale. I can't even think of all of them right now. But they're the suburbs, but the main city of Phoenix is in the center of basically in the center of the community. So that's one of my thoughts. And what do we want in a city center? That's another question. One of the things and one of the reasons that I'm here, and it may or may not be appropriate, but I'm going to bring it up. There's a developer that wants to put in houses around here. And he's had that property for a number of years. And he presented some things to the zoning commission, and they were approved, plans, and everything was going gung-ho for him. He spent a lot of money. He spent about $1.5 million just on studies. For some reason, it came before the council, and it's died. Now, I don't know why, but that's not right. And man, the zoning was correct, everything was correct. So I don't know why the council put a halt to it. So, you're not going to build a city doing that, because that type of thing, when a person spends $1.5 million and you have a developer that has the land, and then at the last step of the process, and not even the last step had already been approved, you change and say no. Well, what kind of a developer wants to come into a city that can do that? You've taken away the property rights of that man. You've taken away all the money and the time and effort that the developer went through to say, hey, yeah, I want to come to Surprise. Who wants to spend $500,000 and just basically throw it away? So that's kind of where I'm at. Figure out where you want your downtown. I don't personally think this is going to be downtown. I think it's going to move out because the city's going to move out. One of the other things I'd like to see less of is fast food on Bell Road. We have enough. You know, some nice restaurants, yeah, and we do have some nice restaurants on Bell Road, but we sure got an awful lot of fast food. And my wife tells me I don't need any more fast food.
Thank you. Next, we have Mike Planetta.
Thank you. Mike Planetta, Surprise resident. Probably the most significant information I've heard in the last 4 years that has come in front of the council was the report that you had done, the study that you had done on leakage in the city of Surprise. And I was amazed to hear that $300 million of money leaving our city going to 83rd Avenue and Bell and over to Litchfield and over to Westgate. I'd like to see that money stay here, and respectfully disagree with Mr. Woodard there, because I really believe that if we have a master plan, which I think is absolutely key, we need a master plan to be able to put together exactly what, and we have a natural partner now with Ottawa University. I mean, I was on the school board when we had the opportunity to double the size of that performing arts facility at Valley Vista High School, but the superintendent shot that down. And it would have cost the city pennies on the dollar. We could have had concerts. We could have had all kinds of things coming in that right now it sits 90% empty most of the time. But that could have been a natural partner there. But with Ottawa University, we have an absolute natural partner. I would love to see a performing arts facility out here. And instead of having to drive all the way down to Phoenix or out to Tempe to go see a show or a play or some event, that we could do it right here in our own city. And with the university here, when you look at Mill Avenue and U of A has a main street there where there's things for the, and one of the biggest problems we have out here is really not much for kids to do that are 14 years and above. So I would really like to see us have like a main street that has a bowling alley, movie theaters, restaurants, arcade, along with, ice cream parlor, things, and then clubs for some of the university students that are, both over and under 21-year-old clubs for kids to be able to go to, that they can walk right from the campus right to a main street there. I think we have one opportunity to do this right. I really think that it's really important for us to put a master plan together that shows exactly what we want in our city. And I think you're getting a lot of good feedback from a lot of people in our city here, but I really think it's really important for us to do this right, make sure that we have the master plan, and then from there just start implementing those partnerships, both private and with the university.
Thanks, Mike. Next, we have Donna Bronsky.
Hello, Mayor, Council, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Donna Bronsky. I'm a resident of Surprise, and I live in Marley Park. I would like to follow up on the comments about master plans that both Mr. Mankiewicz and Mr. Planetta talked about today. I think it's essential that we have a master plan that will work, because as many people have said in the past, we really only have one chance to get it right, or we have to wait a really long time for trial and error to get there. And I don't think many of us want to wait that long. So since we have the opportunity, I think we need to take it, and we need to take it carefully. I think the cornerstone of any master plan, recognizing that the city doesn't own the property, but a cornerstone of any master plan would be for the city to focus on the public spaces. Public spaces are what attract people. They serve as not only attraction of businesses and people to them, if you control the public space and you make an attractive public space, then you can leave to the market what fills in the spaces in between, whether it's arts or whether it's restaurants or businesses. That's always going to change based on the market. But we have a real opportunity to shape that and to have incentives by the kind of open spaces that we have. Several years ago, the council was having a lot of discussions about a form-based code plan. I'm not suggesting we need to go to that level, but the concepts of a form-based code, and I can imagine that Leo Mankiewicz is shaking his head behind me. The concepts of a form-based plan, some of the most basic things are to pay attention to the public spaces and to set the stage with the public spaces. And I think that's where the city could get the most bang for its buck in terms of master planning for this piece of property. I also think the city should take this amazing piece of property and opportunity that we have and have a planning contest on what the master plan should be. I think that there's nothing like a contest to get people's creative juices going. And I don't know what the prize would be to be able to attract the best and brightest, but I'd like us to think about that, because I think that's where we might be able to get some amazing ideas on what we can do. I think there's a lot of agreement in the room about what we'd like the end users to be, but it's all about how we make this piece of property attractive to those end users. And I think that's the way, I think that's one way that we might be able to get where we're trying to go. I think the other really important point of this is we're going to have to get some kind of financing mechanism to build this public infrastructure. And granted, we'll hopefully get private participation with any developer, either the developer or the end users that are coming in. But I'm not sure we can depend on that 100%. I think we're going to need some money so that we can have that contest, or hire some major planning firm. However we go about it, it's going to take some money. And even if we have to have a GoFundMe account, I don't know what we're going to do, but we need to come up with some money to do this. And the other thing, on a very micro point, to follow up on what I think the downtown should look like, I think our parking needs to be underground, because I don't think we have enough land to waste the ground level on parking. Now, maybe we have parking garages with active uses around and on top. I don't know what it is, or I know underground parking is the most expensive, but we can't waste our space with parking. So we need to have really creative ways to do the parking. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next I have Ed Hansel.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Ed Hansel. I live in Litchfield Manor in Surprise. And has anyone here never been to San Diego? Only a couple. Okay. If you've been to San Diego and you've been to the heritage area, you'll see that they have some very, very unique shops, some great restaurants, especially along 5th Avenue and 4th Avenue. They have outdoor dining facilities at these restaurants, and they're not your usual restaurants. They're very unique. Most of the area is 2- and 3-story buildings, and we could duplicate that type of an environment, at least in part. And on the first floor, you have your shops and restaurants, outdoor dining and everything. On the second floor, you could have those legal offices or apartments. And on the third floor, you could even have art lofts and more apartments. And that would help defer the cost of building that. So that's sort of what I'd like to see, except for a couple of other things for the Ottawa University students. Somewhere along the line, I'd like to see a Starbucks and an In-N-Out. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ed. All right, I have a couple more sitting here, but feel free if you would like to fill out a sheet, we can forward them and add to the pile. So I'm going to read one from that came in from an email. I wanted to start by saying how thrilled I am with the future plans to build a downtown Surprise. I've been a Surprise resident since 2005. I'm a 28-year-old female who not only lives in Surprise but also works in Surprise. My husband and I try to shop locally and dine in Surprise as much as we can. Having limited choices for shopping and dining, sometimes we travel outside of Surprise and spend our money in Peoria or Scottsdale. What we would love is for Surprise to create a downtown that brings entertainment, trendy shops, and dining that is not your typical fast food chain. With that being said, here are my recommendations for downtown Surprise: a Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, a wine bar, Bath and Body Works, Victoria's Secret, Pottery Barn, Kirkland's, Charming Charlie's, indoor rock climbing, the Yard House, Angry Crab Shack. So those are just some ideas that individuals have brought forward. So at this time, I'm going to call forward Jean Collins. Jean Collins. Sean Collins. Is it Sean? I'm sorry. I misread your handwriting. I'm sorry.
Mayor, Council, thank you for this opportunity. Don't mind me,
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Take that selfie.
All right. Awesome. So, thank you. Don't mind me setting up here. Perfect. So, actually, my family and I, we actually moved here for about a year and a half ago from San Diego, actually. I'm a former military, Navy, and my family is of Hispanic culture, Latina. And we actually moved here specifically for San Diego. We were renting for about $2,000 a month, and we were able to move here and purchase a home for roughly $230,000. And a couple things that stood out after doing research of Surprise in the community. One is the safety. I mean, Surprise was rated as one of the safest cities in the U.S., within the top 10 or top 5. I think that stands dividends to the work that you all put into it, as well as our public safety as well. And with that, the newest bill being approved, that's only going to improve that as well. So that's the fact that I believe that Surprise is one step ahead of the game when it comes to safety. And our residents support that based off approving the funds, the bonds moving forward. So that's awesome. That's really important, especially for families. Being a father of 4, I mean, that's really big. So that's one of the key things that Surprise really drove. Another thing is I'm an AZ native here. I was born and raised in Phoenix. I grew up on 19th Avenue in Northern and Glendale. Graduated from North Canyon High School, for any of you who are familiar with that. And I actually left for the military in 2007. So right before I grew up through the incredible hot market and left right before everything crashed. So we moved back here about 2015, the end of 2015. So it's really, I almost didn't see that side of Arizona. And so coming from California, the biggest things that really stood out, and we visit there often, is the roads and the city in regards to the organization and the plan of the entire city. And Surprise works hand in hand with the entire Arizona when it comes to planning and road development and in regards to public safety as well. And the fact we have 303 running down, I mean, my wife and I comment all the time, it's like our own personal freeway. So when it comes to that, that was one of the other driving forces when we moved here as well. So moving forward, the plan with Surprise, I think it's very crucial. Being in 2017, and the fact that Surprise hasn't quite developed yet, we're on that transition right here, that's why we're meeting. And it being 2017, this is the perfect time to be able to be planning the growth of the city. Because nowadays, in this day and age with technology, literally we can transform this city and be the station, the mark in Arizona moving forward. We have that ability. With being able to take Ottawa University on, it just shows what we are capable of doing right now. So, and he spoke so beautifully in regards to how from nothing we created something, and it's even growing faster. And the fact that they're going to have all this development within the first year and a half is incredible. So moving forward with Surprise, and by the way, I'm Sean Collins. I'm a realtor here in the Valley. I didn't speak of that earlier. So a couple things. My family and I, we do all of our shopping outside of Surprise. The only shopping that we do is maybe at the Food City. Other than that, every single dollar that we spend is outside of Surprise. We go to Costco and Goodyear, and we spend a lot of our money in Phoenix, in the Dunlap area. So ideally, growing this city, keeping the money inside the city, and one of our other residents spoke about that earlier, that's incredibly crucial. Because moving forward, we're going to need those tax dollars, that money, to continue to grow our city, to provide safety, to provide our roads. I know that we're almost coming up to that point where we're going to have to start paying back our original builders all that tax money that we said we'd give back to them. So we're almost at that point, that transition point, where we need to be starting to create money. And yes, we want to spend money, but at the same time, the city must start to generate money. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in a hole, get halfway through this project with this beautiful master plan, and we're going to run out of funds. So ideally, we don't want to be in that position. Right. So another thing is learning from the best of the best. We're blessed to be in Arizona. I believe it's the best state to live in. I might be a little biased, I'm a native here, but truly, I do believe we're blessed. The fact that the I-11 is supposed to be in transition and connecting us directly to Nevada, and us being Surprised, we could put ourselves on the map, and with the help of Ottawa University, really become a staple point in Arizona moving forward. So learning from other cities around us, from Scottsdale, from what not to do in the mid-city, how I feel that growing too fast ideally isn't going to put us in a good position. The fact that we're meeting now, and the fact that Prasada, as you spoke of, hasn't developed quite yet, I believe is a good thing. Because if it would have developed, I don't believe Surprise, based off the research and the study that I did, I don't necessarily think Surprise would have been ready for the massive growth of Prasada. So the fact that even though it was submitted in 2005, and here we are 12 years later, and it isn't fully developed, might be a good thing. Because here we are in 2017, and we can transition into technology age, which is constantly getting smarter every day. And we can transition into that. Because if we would have built Prasada back in 2005, we would have already wasted all those dollars and spent all of them, and we would be behind the technology curve. And now we can be ahead. Another key thing, being a father of 4, having my children go to local schooling, is with that growth and with the public safety is the schooling. So ideally, keeping up with the amount of schools, I know that our schooling, we're not overpopulated now. I know that going to school within the cities in the center of Arizona, schools started to become overpopulated. Now, it's incredibly crucial that that's also a main focus, because with what Dysart Unified School District is doing is game-changing. And what they're doing to create a different environment for our children, not only to learn, but also to grow as human beings, from the amount of money that is is being provided in for our children to be able to become the future. I believe that's what Dysart Unified School District's doing, and they're one step ahead of the game. Now, overpopulating our schools with, I know that he spoke of, one of the other residents spoke about the development being turned down. Once again, I believe that might be a good thing. Why? Because we're not to the position where we can provide 7,000 families with schooling. We're just not there. We're at the beginning stages of the growth of Surprise. Now, with this map and the growth that we've had over the past 20 years is incredible, going from a farm city to where we're at now. And I think staying true to our roots is really crucial. Going from a city where it's farm and to where we are now, we really have a really good balance of really every type of culture and, I mean, from farmland to corporate to your families. And I think staying true to our roots is very crucial. I mean, Surprise, I mean, as the original founder said, it would be a surprise if Surprise amounted to anything, right? And what we've amounted to this point is incredible. So utilizing our older residents, I'm 28, so I believe I'm younger than you are. But utilizing, no offense, sir. Hey, the older the wiser, I believe in that.
Zing.
Older wiser. So
we can handle it. We've heard worse.
Of course. That's why you're in those chairs. So utilizing and balancing our older citizens with, now we have the growth of Ottawa University. Now, that's incredibly crucial. So the growth of our downtown, of what we plan on putting down on paper and creating should be a mixture of everything. Right now, we have Ottawa University said 3,000 students within the next 10 years, 10 years. So that's a growth of over 200, let's see, 12, so over 250 students per year, over. So being able to balance that, the growth of the young and Ottawa University and the students, but also taking into consideration we have Sun City West and we have the older citizens up north. And now where's the balance, or there must be a balance of also the families. And so the creation of our downtown, the creation of Surprise as a city must incorporate everything. And the beautiful part is we have examples everywhere. Okay. So learning from everyone is going to be ideal, and I think the fact that we're just planning this, and like you said, we didn't make any major mistakes. I think we are, compared to other cities that are just creating from scratch, we have a strong foundation here. Really do. We have incredible people and residents here that really care for Surprise. And that's what it takes to actually build a city that will become a staple.
Sean, I have to tell you, I appreciate your youth and your enthusiasm. And you make some great points. I want to be sensitive to the fact that there are other people that would like to speak as well. And so we typically try to keep our comments to 4 minutes.
Got it.
So I'd ask you if you could just wrap up. If you could just wrap up. I don't have 14 minutes, but
Absolutely.
If you could just wrap up, sir, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, once again, I just want to emphasize, I appreciate your time, Council. I appreciate your time, Mayor. I really do, and all the work that all of you put in. Surprise is what it is because of all of you, and also its residents, and the fact that, I've watched your guys' meetings over and over, and I do see a progress. I'll end on this. One of the things that as a team must be created is connecting better with the community and its residents. I know there was a meeting just the other week where there was something that nobody commented. Nobody. You looked on social media and everywhere, nobody commented. Right now, if we're live, we have, 6 people watching. So that's a disconnect from its residents to this. This is incredibly crucial. So the fact that we don't have 17,000 people watching from out of state and in state, or whatever it is, there's a disconnect. So how can, as a board, commissioners, as a mayor, how can we better connect with our community so that way everyone has a voice?
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. All right. Next we have Charlotte Confer. Charlotte?
Hi, Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to come before you. My name is Charlotte Comfort. I am a resident of Marley Park, and my family has lived in Surprise for 10 years, and we moved from the state of Illinois. Forgive me that I'm going to read my notes. I would like to also encourage the master plan proposal, and would further like to propose a purposeful engaging of Ottawa students in that master planning. My household is going to be going through the empty nest situation soon. My son's 16, and in his own words, he would like to stay here in Surprise. He loved growing up here, but what he says is there's nothing to do here. We are losing the next generation to this bedroom community as they're heading out of town to meet people and do things. Would be wonderful for them to have a place to meet one another and consider their home city as someplace they would also like to start their own lives. Lastly, our community would also greatly benefit from the loft and condos type living downtown. My husband and I met in Chicago in residential living. That's going to be similar to your Ottawa students. It was there that we grew together, and when we chose to get married and start a family, we moved back to the suburbs, which is where we were from. We started our family and then decided to move to Surprise because, and again, we moved from Illinois. We moved to Surprise for many reasons, for the quality upbringing and community lifestyle that we might be able to offer our son that was not going to be available to him in Cook County, Illinois. So he's now 16, and I would love to see a future in which my husband and I could maintain staying here in Surprise, but return to a walkable downtown lifestyle, a place where we could engage in the community and hopefully, because I only have one child and would love for him to stay here too, but hopefully just to have the next generation also be here. We have many, many families where we don't have extended families in town, and so this would be a great way as we continue to grow to start seeing more extended families here at Surprise. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, I have one last sheet here, so if there's more out there, you have an opportunity. Joe LaRue.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and P&Z Chair Chapman and Commission. And I first want to say, I'm Joe LaRue with Sun Health, and I first want to say thank you for having this session tonight. Greatly appreciate the dialogue on the future of Surprise in the downtown. I want to digress just a second and just also say thank you for all the work you've done recently for the colonnade. You've done a lot of work recently on our next phase there, and I got to tell you, Sun Health couldn't be more proud to have our corporate headquarters in the city of Surprise and be developing a first-class senior community here in the city of Surprise. I also have to tell you that Sun Health is a partner in the downtown land. You may or may not know that, but we are one of 3 partners in the partnership that owns the property. So tonight, I cannot talk to you on behalf of the partnership because I'm not authorized to do that. So my comments tonight are really comments by Sun Health and also by me personally. I've been around a long, long time. But I want to impress upon you that I think what you're doing here tonight is absolutely spot on. Much like what we do in our organization, when we build something, we know that we have to manage it, own it, manage it in perpetuity. So we're very careful on what we build. We're very deliberate on what we do and how we do it. So I think what I'm hearing tonight from the public is the same thing. So I would encourage you to do that, encourage this involvement so that what gets built there is correct. And then on behalf of Sun Health, I would let you know that we are committed as your partner to make sure that what gets built there is really what's in the best interest of this city, of your residents, of the City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission, and of all the stakeholders. And with that, I just want to say thank you for having me this evening and giving me a moment to speak.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Anyone else? If anybody else is still thinking about it, you can go ahead and fill out a slip. I would like to reflect on a couple of things that I've heard. First of all, we recognize that we are a bedroom community, and we are trying to make that shift. And certainly now that we're a college town, that goes us a long way to making that shift. But right now, approximately 90% of our workforce drives out of town every day to take their jobs elsewhere. And we are trying to reverse that trend, because what we have is a very talented workforce that exists right here. And our economic development employees are working very hard with potential employers who are looking for that talented workforce and are glad to hear that we have it right here. And so that becomes a real sales point for them to help bring those jobs, those businesses that could come and locate in a city center like the one that we hope that we can envision together. Another thing I really want to comment on is what Mr. Collins actually raised was an issue about diversity. We in the city of Surprise do celebrate our diversity, and we're grateful for the diversity that we have grown to respect and admire. And while we may have originally been a farm community, we quickly grew to what was known as a retirement community, but now our retirement community is essentially about 20% of the entire city. So now we're really a young city. And we're trying to reflect that diversity of a community as it continues to grow, and also respect the fact that as new generations come along, their needs change. Just as shopping has changed, it's delivered differently. We have to reflect that in our growth plans and how we manage a master plan. So a lot of wonderful comments have been said thus far, and we recognize that doing that public outreach, as Mr. Collins suggested, is critical to being a success, not only as a city as a whole, but certainly in building something as signature as our downtown. So again, I want to thank the public for their input, and I now have another person who wishes to come forward, and that is Mr. Randall Kidd.
Hello, my name is Randall Kidd, and I'm here, I don't mean to jump on anything, but one thing that I've noticed about this city is that the Prasada has already been scheduled. The road is set up. We know where the road is. But here in downtown Surprise, we don't have any of that. So I'm thinking it's very crucial that we set that up so that some companies, they know how much space they're going to have. So what they will want to develop, they know what they're doing. If there's no streets, then they don't know where the buildings are going to be, and they don't know how they can develop that and create their master plan. Secondly, I'd like to add, as far as the parking garage, one thing that's possible is that we could build 2 or 3 stories of a parking garage on one big block, with the understanding that we would have on the surrounding areas stores, things like that, to hide it, kind of take advantage of that land. And at the same time, it would look good. That's just one suggestion. Thirdly, what we could do is we could start with developing street fairs. I know in Orange County, California, one town, they have street fairs right in the center of the roads, right in downtown. And they have different foods, different events, almost like Glendale, Glendale Glitters. They have only, we could do something like that here. We could do that right now. We have in front of the police and fire station, we have available space. And I think that would be a good place to start. We could get some ideas from that, and we would attract more people, and from there we could generate more ideas. So with all of that, I definitely think that we need to develop a backup. I think that I love the suggestion from Sun Health. I love that they're here. I think that we need more development here. Hopefully, we haven't heard much about that yet, but we can't do it without them and without their partnerships. So I just want to thank all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Kidd. All right. Next, I have Scott Phillips.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, members of the commission, thank you very much for allowing me to be here and speak. I think first off, I'm absolutely shocked. I am shocked that Donna Bronsky and I are pretty much 100% aligned with how we feel about things. I think perhaps she's a recovering lawyer and she's turned into a great urban planner. So the concept of a plan being focused on streets, being focused on open space, being focused on public spaces is part of a grand history and a grand tradition of great master plans, including Chicago and DC and Paris. What can you focus on? And I would like to take her comment one step further. While we're talking about open spaces, while she's talking about open spaces, while she's talking about public facilities and parks, my view is streets are an integral part of the city experience. Streets are an integral part of the urban experience. We have to do our streets right. Now, we've spent a significant amount of time with staff trying to figure out streets. How do they feel when you walk down them? How do they relate to the surrounding area? How are they a continuous component of your open space system? So when we're talking about master planning, what I'd love, and I think what staff would love, I don't want to speak for anybody, but that's what I will, is to continue to figure out how we create the most efficient, effective, walkable, shaded streets that we possibly can. And as development occurs around them, and the planners of the late 19th and late 19th and 20th and early 20th centuries felt, once you take care of those fundamental issues of those streets and what those look like and how those feel, and you take care of those parks and you do an open space plan, then the surrounding development will continuously improve and want to be of a quality that is deserved of those public improvements. So as we're talking about master planning, as we're talking about urban planning, I want to continue to really dive into those streets. And I believe they were presented to you at one point, but it'd be great to have feedback. It'd be great to understand where the issues are. Do we need to add more? Do we need to consider how to do them differently? Do we need to do wider sidewalks? But I would really relish those opportunities. And then to build off what Ms. Bronsky said, how do the open spaces work? How are they interconnected? How do we do public facilities effectively? And then we deal with the arts. And then we deal with all the other things that are going to occur as a result of that. Now, I'm also a big free marketer, and the market drives development. But to the degree that we can create that atmosphere, that development will be different in form than the other development in Surprise. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Anyone else? Well, I'm going to turn back to the council and the Planning Commission if you have comments or reflections on some of the things that you've heard. Anyone? Councilmember Duffy.
Thank you. Well, we're going over all of this, and I've heard the Amazon and Prasada, and we're growing so fast, but we don't have to act like it with this. This should be small businesses, boutiques, places where families can come and spend a day together. Like if you watch the spring training games, when the game's over, it just empties. Doesn't have to be that way. You can go to the game, or a grandfather can take his grandson to a game and then say, let's go get an ice cream and be able to walk. Or you can go to lunch before you go to a football game at Ottawa. And then after those sporting events, you go to dinner, or when the sun sets, the town doesn't just shut down and turn black, where there is things for college kids to do. So even the small businesses, I'm one of them. When I was working inside that Bank of America, I used to say it. I called it the Office Max 500 because it's stressful, and I used to go take a walk. And the only place I could was I just went around Office Max. But there's nothing to say you can't. Maybe you're having a hard day and you need to take a half hour. and go take a walk and see some artwork or some fountains, or those lakes when those Canadian geese come in the fall. It's a stress reliever. We don't have to move so fast. This park can be slow down. Just take it easy. A place where families put the cell phones away for a little while. Walk with each other, talk. Everyone, we're not a retirement community, we're a family community. My family goes from 4 years old to 65. Everyone can have something to do. And that's the way I think we should look at it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Patrick.
Mayor?
Council Commissioner?
Yes. At first, I'd like to apologize. As you noticed, I was a little late. I discovered it takes more than an hour and 50 minutes to get from 24th Street and Camelback over here at rush hour. So I apologize for that because I normally make that up to Flagstaff in that time. My grandfather moved into Surprise in 1952. At that time, the commercial center was 6 stores, Williams Market, and a couple other on Grand Avenue. There have been a lot of changes. I retired out of the school district here. And I had, working with Leo over there for a while on the general plan, it was envisioned by the committee that we would have exactly what has been identified. Small shops, destination, walkable, all those things, multi-storied. We talked in terms of businesses on the bottom and apartments or housing on the top. All of those things. The two reasons that I wanted to be on the Planning Commission were basically City Center and the Prasada. Those are the two main things, in my opinion, that are going to set how Surprise grows. I have a large investment here, and I'm a little bit like Sean, who I believe has left now. I was born here, so there were, I think, 5 of us about the same time, born in Arizona.
But not at the same time as Sean.
No, and I was going to mention that, but obviously I didn't have to mention it. So the things that I think are great are that the things that we identified a couple of years ago in the general plan are the things that were brought out. And I appreciate everyone being here. It would be nice if out of 135,000 people, we had perhaps more than this, but it certainly gives us something to work with. So developing a master plan is probably, as far as I'm concerned, one of the first things. And I appreciate Scott's taking that in. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else over here?
Mayor, I think that from what I'm hearing, and I'll follow on with Commissioner Rosenbaum, that the master plan is the critical piece. How do we proceed from this point on with that? If you could elaborate on that.
Well, again, and thank you for that question. I'm going to go back to a little bit what some of you have already participated in, and just an idea of how we might proceed. Recently, we had a meeting back in September on the Bloomberg Challenge, and some of you have heard us talk about the Bloomberg Challenge. It is the Bloomberg Foundation challenges cities all over the world every year to do something unique and that could be transferable to another city to try to help give it some advice and how they move forward on a vexing problem. And so I was really pleased to have a group of 15 people that were willing to sit down with the Bloomberg staff. And in attendance were myself, Vice Mayor Tandy, Councilmember Hall, Chair Chapman, Dennis Smith from the Commission, and then Surprise resident Jeff Gibbs, Joe LaRue from Sun Health, who is a landowner and minority partner, also with Tom McKee, who is also a minority partner, and City Manager Bob Wiggenroth, our Assistant City Manager Nicole Lance, Community Development Director Eric Fitzer, Economic Development Director Janine Yurkovic, Government and Community Partnerships Director Paul Bernardo, Bloomberg Facilitator Barbara Morgan. and Communications Director Diane Arthur, and our Management Analyst Danielle Osborne. So we collectively got together and we went through an all-day workshop, and it was pretty intense. And what we came out with was that we discussed the right size of the problem. And the right size of the problem was that the heart of the city, as it exists today, does not fully meet the needs of our community now and into the future. And so we broke it up into stakeholder groups, and we discussed a number of things that stakeholders have not done enough to create a sense of place in identifying the heart of the city. We've not identified or engaged the appropriate stakeholders to create a consensus of a vision for the heart of the city, and there is no sense of urgency and no definition of what the heart of the city is. And so out of that, we put together an application for the Bloomberg Challenge to try to find a way to make, bring our stakeholders together and create a master plan. Now, the Bloomberg Challenge, the next phase would be, I believe it's $100,000 if we're selected in January to move forward. And what we would like, if we're selected to be part of that Bloomberg Challenge and given the $100,000, we would like to be able to put that forward towards helping to build a master plan. This is not our land, but it is our city. And we are definitely long-term partners with all of the landowners. And so it is part also of our settlement agreement with the landowners that we work together and collaborate over a master plan. And so a master plan is critical. And I think that's been said again and again and again by all the feedback that we've gotten tonight, that the master plan will inform all of us, and it will make all of our jobs much easier to perform in harmony in getting a plan that we really want to see. And so while the Bloomberg Challenge is a great thing to aspire to, we may not win that challenge. We may not get to move to the next step. But this is the beginning of the next step of particularly gathering information from the community, and it's only the first step because we don't intend to stop talking to the community. I think Mr. Collins was dead on. We need to continue to reach out to the community and get their feedback. We also need to impress upon our partners through not only these types of meetings, but also ongoing meetings when we discuss the future of the city, that the master plan is truly critical. It is the critical next step. So we will continue to take feedback. We will continue to meet. And I think as long as we keep the conversation going, we can create that sense of urgency that was identified in the workshop. We have to have the master plan in order to move forward. They're doing it everywhere around the country. Paul Bernardo was in Texas a couple of weeks ago and meeting with a lot of different communities that are going through similar challenges like this, and every one of them was envious of the opportunity that we have here. And so we do want to get it right, and there's lots to put together, but I think that there's consensus that the master plan has to be next, that it has to be robust, but it also has to be flexible so that it can adjust to the time that we move forward. So that's kind of our next step is the dual track. One, we will continue to talk to the Bloomberg folks to move forward. And two, we will continue to talk to the stakeholder partners about building that master plan and taking input from the community, and that includes all of us here at the table and everyone out in the community together. So I appreciate the question.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think, oh wait, I have one more person who wishes to come forward. Mr. Bill Tomsa.
Hi, I'm Bill Thompson. My wife and I have lived here for about a little over a year now. We moved here from Maine. I apologize for my kind of last minute request to speak, but it was motivated by something I've been hearing throughout the evening, and that's the term walkability, which I think is absolutely admirable. I think it's a great concept, but it occurred to me that the last gentleman who spoke talked about going to the ball game with a grandson and then saying, let's go get an ice cream cone. If you look at that square mile, if that ice cream cone is up near Bell and Litchfield, that's a heck of a long way to walk. And I think what I want to urge the council to do is, as you're doing this master plan, keep an eye on the fact that some people just aren't going to walk very far and are going to need some kind of transportation other than a personal vehicle maybe, and kind of keep an eye on what's coming down the road, pun intended, as far as kind of like inner city transportation, and maybe plan for something similar but on a smaller scale to Scottsdale's Ollie Trolley. So that you accommodate these people too. You don't want to more or less exclude them from the excitement and energy of this new community, this new journey that we're on. But that was basically the point I wanted to make.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. And we are keenly aware that not everybody is ready to walk a mile for an ice cream cone. But we also have an opportunity here, as you say, to be forward thinking about transit and a mass transit option. We have been working with the MAG Regional Council on potential options. We also are looking at the possibility of some sort of a circulation system. Councilmember Hall and I actually visited a very interesting technology over in Chandler, where a gentleman is, he is, believe it or not, this just kind of blows your mind, but he is printing vehicles. So it's 3D printing, and he prints parts, and then he assembles them into a vehicle, and he is assembling these little trolleys, buses. They're driverless buses, and for about 8 passengers. And the only place that is currently exploring those is in Japan. So I've been working with them, and also we've been talking to folks in Congress about a new bill that's moving forward to fund experimental vehicles for just that purpose. So we want to stay ahead of the curve. Some of these larger systems that they're using in larger downtown areas are just far too expensive for us to even envision using right now, but we want to right-size our approach and make certain that everyone is taken into consideration when it comes to their mobility. So thank you for your comments.
I have one comment, follow-up
Smith.
on that. Today's paper,
Yes.
they have now driverless buses that are running up and down the Las Vegas Boulevard. It was the first day, and one of them had a wreck the first hour, but he was hit by a truck, and it was not the driver. But they're using driverless buses to go each block to shuttle people up and down the Las Vegas Strip. So, you know, driverless vehicles are the future by 2023, and we'll be lucky to have a need for them by 2023 here as far as the construction. So I think that's admirable, and I think looking for grants would be great. Chandler is now using remove the drivers from their taxi services, and they're completely driverless at this point. So very good.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner.
I actually just have a follow-up with what Commissioner Bash asked about the master plan. If you can just clarify, are we going to wait until January to find out about the Bloomberg, how that works, or are we going to move forward with the developers with that master plan?
Well, at this point, it's a dual-track process. The Bloomberg challenge is its own path, and we will not know whether or not we're selected to move forward to the next phase until January. But that does not stop the conversations with working with our stakeholders here in City Center and the landowners. So we will continue those conversations with them and try to work out a path forward with a master plan.
Okay, so I just have a question about what Donna Bronsky and actually RJ Kidd and Scott brought up was the transportation, the roads, and Scott had made mention to something being turned into the city. Are we looking at that when it comes to the roads, or are we, I mean, is there communication? I mean, what's happening with that?
I'm wondering who can answer that question, because I'm not aware of something that's been turned in. Eric?
Mayor Wolcott, members of the council and commission, the document that Scott was referring to is a draft document that staff has been working on that shows kind of the roadway network over the city center area. So it's not something that's been turned in for official consideration and action. It's just been a preliminary document. We would, I think if the SCDC group would be amenable to it, be willing to share that with the council and the commission, but in no way, shape, or form is that part of a formal application at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ramley?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make an observation. Listening to everyone tonight, this is the first time in many, many, many moons, many years, that all of us have assembled in one room at the same time where everybody could hear what everybody else was saying. We have the landowners, we have the council, and we have the planning commission all in one place, and we have the public and their comments and their suggestions where all of us can hear and all of us can consider and all of us can move forward together in a collaborative manner to solve the problems and to develop a community center that we will all be proud of.
Absolutely. And that is a great wrap, Councilmember Ramley, so thank you very, very much. And I want to thank all of you for attending, all of you, those of you who are watching on television and on Facebook. And we hope to continue to take your feedback, your input, both on our websites. Individual council members have their own websites that they can take feedback, as do I. Also on the city website, feel free to submit your comments and thoughts. We are collecting all of this information, and we hope to share all of our input with the landowners, and because again, as end users, that's the most important thing to take into consideration, is who is needing what in what area of town. That end user is what's going to make this downtown a success. So again, thank you all for coming out this evening, and with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion has been made and seconded to adjourn those meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned.